What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Be Better Podcast, episode 35, with our good friend Trish Wolf. However, I wanted to throw this out there that we're doing something a little unique tonight. We're actually starting a segment. We haven't done segments before. We're super pumped about this. If you guys remember back in the day, Trish was going to come on episodes ago towards the beginning. We had some technical issues on my end, so we're super happy to have her back. However, this segment is going to be covering a lot of aspects in regards to real estate, the NAR settlement that's happened as well. A couple other things on there, kind of prepping people how to become homeowners and first-time buyers, all this good stuff. So there's a ton of good content coming up. We're going to spread that out over a couple different segments. So we are really, really excited to have you on, Trish. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. I enjoy being here. So look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as you know, Trish, I know quite a bit about you already, but our viewers out there that don't, I just kind of I want to hear from the top. So, like, how long have you been in the real estate game?
I got licensed at the end of 2017, so you can do the math. I'm going like basically 6 years. So from there, it's propelled pretty quickly. I still can't believe how far I've come in just 6 years. So yeah, 2017.
I love
That's
it. Absolutely. So you shared this number with us earlier. I'm curious because you said you've only been in it 6 years, but the number you shared is pretty remarkable. How many houses on average do you sell a year?
About 100 houses a year. Me personally, just totally all, roots in, probably 60, 65. But if you look at my team, we sell more like 120 to 130 a year. So I really have my hands in at least 100 transactions a year. But yeah, just solely me, but 60 to 70 a year.
oh my god, that's
That's
impressive. Wow.
that is so impressive.
It's a lot.
Because getting in the real estate game, it's all about building your book of business, right? And only being in 6 years, but selling, you know, three digits, right, that's pretty remarkable and impressive. So before we jump into the other stuff, I do want to touch on that really quick. What made you want to get into the real estate game?
Well, we used to watch a lot of HGTV and we
Of
would watch
course.
those clowns, flipping houses. And my husband's a remarkable contractor. And, we were like, oh my gosh, if these idiots can do it, anybody can do it. And then we were getting ready to sell our own house. And when we saw how much, if we wanted to sell our house at that time for $500,000, and I figured the commission, and I was like, I am not paying somebody that much money to sell our house. I know I can do a better job. I'm just going to get my real estate license so I can sell my own house. And literally that started the whole course of action. It was going to be a one and done, maybe a flip here and there as a hobby. And but I tell you what, getting licensed as a realtor was hard. And I was like, I did not just go through all that work to sell one house and start a hobby. So
Your own house at that.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and, so I was just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna give it a shot." So I started, posting on Facebook, and immediately I had some friends, at church or whatever, "Oh, you're a realtor now. Maybe you could help me sell our house." And, so it started out just on Facebook, and, so right out of the gate, I probably, my first 3 months in business, I had 2 buyers and a listing, and that was just in my first 3 months of business. Most realtors on average take at least 1 to 2 years to have 1 transaction. So for
Wow.
me to have 3 transactions in my first 3 months was just unheard of. I didn't realize it was so unprecedented at the time. I was just like, "Oh, great. This is fun." And I love it. I was born for this. I love the problem solving. I love thinking outside the box. I love it when I can get stuff done and make people money. It makes me excited to make other people money. And so this is a really good fit.
I mean, it definitely seems so, right? The results speak for themselves. You see it a lot of times in other industries, right? We're like, you see it all the time in sports, right? We're like the kid that didn't play on his high school baseball team. He's just like going to the park and he's hitting 500-foot bombs, right? And he's just like, oh, I don't know, I just do this in my free time, right? And he's a stud at it, right? It's the same idea here.
International.
Like you got this, you got this as a kind of like almost a joke, right? To save you guys some money, and it turned it out to be, oh my God, like the best thing in the world. I mean, and
Yeah.
now look where it's led, right? You're a broker now, right? You have your own team.
I'm not a broker. I'm still just an agent. I say
Oh,
just,
okay.
but I do have a team. There's 8 of us on my team. I have thought about getting my broker's license, but I'll tell you the truth. Even if I did get my broker's license, it would really just be for a feather in my cap at this point because I don't think I would ever leave EXP Realty. When I found EXP, it's been a little over a year ago, I made the move over there. There were so many benefits that, I could not create if I was just a single broker out there on my own trying to, find my way through the wilderness. So, just so many benefits with just stock and mentoring, people teaching. I mean, there's just so much knowledge. And I am surrounded by multimillionaires on a daily basis. And I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. So when you are around people and you're not the smartest, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, you know?
Right.
And I always, I'm not trying to brag, but a lot of times I feel that way because I do a lot of research and I'm a nerd and I like to read. And so I always know a lot of information. And so at EXP, I am definitely not the smartest person in the world and or in the room. And I love that because I am just like absorbing all of that into my brain. And you surround yourself with these, uber smart and wealthy people, it rubs off. And I love it. So I would never leave EXP, even if I got my broker's license. I would still stay there so I could absorb all that value.
I love that. I mean, and that's so true. I mean, you go somewhere where they give you good infrastructure, they give you the resources, but you're surrounded by people that allow you to grow, right? I mean, I agree with you. When I'm the smartest person in the room, and God bless, I'm no super genius, but it has happened, right? I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of this room. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You
nobody
don't
in
want,
here, nobody
yeah.
in here is gaining from anything I say, and I'm not gaining from anything they say, and
Yeah.
it's just dead. It's pointless, right?
They will bring you down
Your
instead of
brothers.
you raising them up, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I've read
Yeah.
this quote years ago, and I've always have stuck with it. It's that you are the average of the five people you associate yourself with most often, right? So if you associate yourself with five multimillionaires on a regular basis, you're going to become the sixth. I mean, it's just law. It's just nature, right? It's the laws of attraction. It's just what it is.
I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. So I mean, God bless. I mean, it's a no brainer there. So with that, like, tell me a little bit more because I know this economy, this world right now in the real estate market is absolutely bananas, crazy. Interest rates are at an all time high for like the last 20 something years. All this crazy stuff. So tell me, kind of, how has that affected you and your team?
Yeah, interest rates, like if you look historically, interest rates are pretty average historically. Like when I bought my first house, we were at 16%. And we refinanced at 12% and we were doing a happy dance because we thought we were getting free money. So 12%, I mean, can you imagine? But in your lifetime, in the millennials lifetime, this is the highest they've ever seen it. So they don't know
Right.
what to do with themselves, and forget it, younger people than the millennials, they're just like, what happened? Interest rate should be 2%. So yeah, it feels very high for the home buyers that are out there in the market now. And so I can't say, oh, your feelings are invalid because to you, yeah, this is the highest you've ever seen it. I don't know that we'll ever get back to 2%. I mean, no matter how great the economy ever turns, I mean, I would hope, but I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get there. If we get to fives, I think we'll be doing good. So, what it has done, it has taken a market that was already very volatile in the sense that there was no inventory. So, through COVID, so it was even before COVID, it was already a seller's market. Inventory was slowing down and it was just a seller's market because there were so many buyers in that market. There weren't enough homes to satisfy the needs of all the buyers. So it was already a seller's market leading into COVID. Then COVID hits. Nobody was doing anything. Like everybody's like, oh, lock the doors. We can't have showings. We can't have open houses. There were actually some states around the nation that you could not show your home during COVID.
Mm.
It was against the law to have an open house during COVID. Now, Missouri was not one of those, but the ramifications of that were contagious. And there were agents like afraid to show houses. You know what? I was just like, let's go. I will sell anybody a house. Bring it on. I'll be licking doorknobs. I don't care. Give me COVID if you must. I am going to sell houses. 2020 was my banner year. I broke the 50 house mark. I sold over 50 houses in 2020. And I was like, good Lord, I will never be able to do this again. 2021 hits. I sold 60, 62, maybe 65 houses, or 2021 rather. And I was like, holy crap, how am I doing this? How is this happening? And that's when I started my team because I was like, I've got all this business. I need help. And but now you fast forward, 2023 was kind of a stagnant year. We were still busy as a team because I am always out there hustling. I'm always out there looking for buyers and sellers. And plus, I do Zillow Flex. So Zillow, every buyer's on Zillow. So my phone's always ringing that way. So we got multiple streams of where the buyers come in. So we've stayed busy, but probably just a fraction of what we could have done had interest rates stayed low and if the market would have, kept expanding. Because here's what's happening. Because interest rates are higher and they're in the sevens, and a lot of people out there right now have interest rates of 2 to 3%. So you get somebody who wants to downsize. They're older, they want that downsized home, which is great because then I get to sell their house and help them buy a house. Wonderful. That's what I love. But then they go look at smaller houses that are, a fourth of the size, a fourth of the cost, but it's double the mortgage. And they're just like,
Mm.
well, wait a minute, why would I move? Like, so then they stay put, which makes inventory that much lower. So there's nothing out there for buyers to buy. And buyers, because interest rates are, 6.9 today, um, they don't have very much buying power like they did 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So it's just a recipe for stagnation. And even though we have stayed busy, I see realtors out there just dying on the vine, because they don't know how to think outside the box and generate avenues of business in other ways, except just to sit there and pout because interest rates are high. So you just have to be creative.
Yeah, I love. So can we touch on that really quick, right? So obviously, everything you just said, super true, super accurate, right? It's difficult out there. Are there some kind of best practices that you know of for first-time homeowners, or not even first-time buyers, just like people that like, God bless, as you know, me, like my wife and I were trying to upgrade, and then we ran the numbers, and we're like, "Ooh, hold on, pull back the reins a little bit." But
Right,
what are
yeah.
some of the best practices that people can do to get in the best position for whenever they do buy a home or looking to buy a home? Um, they're going to have a little better outcome than maybe they wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, definitely your credit score is going to play a huge role in anything you do financially, obviously. So whether you're a first-time home buyer or maybe you haven't bought a house in 20 years, you really want to focus on building that credit score. And as young people, and I'll just say, this applies to everybody, but let me just speak to the younger generations that are trying to buy that first-time home. You want to start building your credit score at the earliest age possible. Like when you are, if you're a high school kid listening to this podcast today, you know what? Go get a credit card. If you can get a credit card, and I don't know what the laws are these days, but if, I know when I was in college, you could get a credit card. So I don't know what the age is anymore, but get a credit card, even if it's just a gas card or a Walmart card. But you want your credit to not only be wide, which means multiple avenues of credit showing up. So maybe a gas card, a Best Buy card, a Walmart card. Get the easy ones. Those are easy ones to get. So you want it to be wide, but you also need it to be deep, which means not only do you have those credit cards, or maybe you go and you finance a car, whatever you can do to start building credit. You want it to be deep, which means you need to be using and utilizing that credit. Because if you just open the credit card and it just sits there, that's great and all, but it's not helping you build your credit. So if you are a young person and you only get a credit card that's got a $500 limit, there are a couple of things you want to do. You never want to max out that card. You want to keep a very small balance on the card. If your limit is 500, never get above that $250 mark on the card, but use it. Put a few dollars on it every month and always make your payments. Set it up online to automatically make your minimum payment due every month, because if you miss a payment or you're late, you've literally done all that for nothing. So set up automatic payments to make sure you're making that minimum payment. Keep a small balance rolling on that. And you don't want to pay it down to zero before the bill generates, because my son did that. And, because he listened to my advice, but then he would always pay it off really fast down to zero. And after 4 years in the Air Force, he had no credit to show for it because he would always pay it off before the bill generated, thinking, oh, this is smart. I'm paying it off. I'm not paying interest. He built no credit. So, you know what? let that interest, hit you every once in a while. Again, it's a very small amount on your card. But just let the creditor see you're using the card, you're financially responsible enough to pay the card. Just keep a small little balance on there. So that is a great way. Another way to do it, and this is a great hack, like this should just be on billboards. This is a great life hack. So if you don't listen to anything else I say, listen to this. So my niece, she had her identity stolen, and she's only 20 years old. She was trying to rent an apartment. She didn't realize her identity was stolen until she went to rent the apartment. Her credit score was like I don't know, 500 or whatever it was. So anyway, what I did for her, and you can find your own person in your family or a friend, you find someone who's got great credit, has a great credit card that they utilize, and they're making payments, have them add you to a credit card. So I added my niece to my credit card, and this is a card that I use for business. So it's got like a, $25,000 limit. Every month I'm putting $10,000 to $15,000 a month on it, paying it off at the end of the month. So I added her to that card. Her credit score bumped up to the 700s in a matter of weeks because my
Cool.
credit then by osmosis got passed over to her. So if you have anyone in your life that you can have add you to a credit card, that is the quickest, easiest, simplest way to build your credit like immediately. I didn't give her a card. She wasn't, she didn't have any access to my money, but just her being on that account. In fact, I think she's still on the account. And that was years ago. But yeah, just being on that account, great life hack. Find somebody that can help you do that. That's a great way to do it. But yeah, just start building credit. That's ground zero.
That's awesome. What are your thoughts about the buyers wanting to put a higher down payment on that? Is that a good idea or is that not a good idea?
Yeah, so there's another life hack I have for that. I just learned this a couple of years ago from a lender. So if you put 20% down, then you're gonna, if you're, lucky and blessed enough that you have 20% in the bank that you can put 20% down, then that's gonna save your PMI. That's private mortgage insurance, which basically that's gonna be like 125, $150 a month that you're paying just for PMI. So if you put if you've got a loan that's like an 80% LTV loan to value, anything less than that, you're paying PMI. So everybody's goal, like the ultimate goal has always been put 20% down to save your PMI, save your 125 bucks a month. But here's a hack. Lender told me that if you just take the hit for the PMI, you actually get a better rate because you've got the PMI, you've got that mortgage insurance in place. So you're lower risk on the risk factors and you will get a better interest rate if you are utilizing PMI. So put 19% down and then make a payment or two. And then boom, you're at your 80% LTV and the PMI will drop off, but you're still grandfathered in at that great rate. So I did not ever think of that. A lender told me that a few years ago, and I was like, why doesn't everybody do that? Nobody knows, unless you see behind the curtain, you would never know that. Like, I've been in real estate a long time, bought a lot of houses, had a lot of loans. I never knew that. So that's a little life hack. But yeah, 20% is your sweet spot where you don't have to pay the PMI. So your mortgage payment will be a little lower.
That is absolutely. I'm pissed off that you just told me that because if I would have known that, that's what we would have done because we have PMI,
Huh?
and I think my calculations by next year it'll fall off because of the equity we built. But it is like $100 something a month extra that we
Well,
pay,
and Nate,
but we got the better rate.
how long have you been in your house?
2.5 years.
Okay, so you should have your house reappraised because in 2.5 years you've built equity. You may already be at that 80% LTV and you didn't have to do it by making payments. The equity growth in your home will count. So if, I'm terrible at math, but let's just say your house, for my easy, simple math brain, say your house cost $100,000 and,
For
at
the record,
80,
it's way more than that. But go ahead.
I know. But for my easy my simpleton math, okay? If your house was $100,000 and then you want to get to $80,000 owed to the bank, there's your
Right.
80% LTV. Well, now your house is worth $120,000 because of equity growth over the last 2.5 years. Well, then you're no longer needing to get down to 80,000.
You need to get
That's
to
going to be a
60.
higher, right? So So have your house reappraised, and you could already be at that 80% LTV, and then you're going to drop $125 a month off of your house payment.
Either way of those, that's perfect information. However, if I would have known your first strategy, I would have done that because we put a decent amount of money down. I think we put 15% down. We had the extra 5%, or excuse me, 4%, right? We could have totally done that. Um,
Well,
God bless.
make extra payments. Here's another hack if you're already in a house.
Oh, I know this one. I like where you're going.
If you make just one extra house payment a year, and it doesn't have to be like payment number 13, like say your house payment's $1,000,
Spread it
a
out.
month, spread it out. Just as long as by the end of the year you've accumulated one extra house payment that goes, all that extra money goes towards your principal. If you just take one extra house payment a year, then you can knock like 7 to 10 years off the life of your loan.
I
So
think when I ran that math for me, I think if we did that, it would knock 13 years. So essentially almost half of, half of the duration, which
yeah,
is, I mean, it's nuts. Like,
yeah,
I
it's
mean, our
worth it.
mortgage is 1250, right? So that's $125 a month extra that we, maybe we don't go out to dinner one time, whatever, right? Like if
Mhm.
we were really penny pension, do that and you're saving yourself $90,000 in interest. Like,
Right,
come on,
right.
guys, you can do it.
Well,
Don't go to
get
Starbucks for 4 days.
get your house reappraised, and then you're at your 80% LTV. Your house payment drops down to 125 bucks. Keep making that same payment, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be the same. It's gonna be a
You're
wash.
saving money at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Real estate's always been a long game in my mind. It's never about the short, initial. It's never the instant gratification. It's always been about how can I beat the bank in the long run.
yeah, and real estate is the one thing that's like that tangible investment that is always going to grow. And it might ebb and flow and it might have its down years or its sluggish years. Like 2023 was kind of a stagnant year, but it wasn't going backwards. You know, Even after 2008, the big crash of 2008, I think, real estate only lost like 6%, in its worst case scenario. And I'm sure there's individual people who lost more, but overall, real estate only lost about 6% after that crash, which is way better than the dip the stock market was taking, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
So, and, but then
Yeah.
here's the thing, every time it dips, it skyrockets upward. So, in, in the long term, real estate is your one sure bet because it's not going anywhere. Barring the fact that unless your house falls into a sinkhole, it's always your equity's always growing when you have real estate. So I'm always a big advocate. I'm always telling all my kids, buy rental properties, buy rental properties. So that is the long game for sure.
So I know God bless, we're already close on the time because we want to break this out into segments. However, I want to touch on the NAR stuff really quick, just very briefly, right? So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's probably the biggest shakeup in real estate history, and at least in our lifetime,
Yeah.
if not in the whole time, right? Um, could you just kind of give a quick? We're gonna to give some context. We're gonna jump into this and do a deep dive in the other segments, but because we have about 10 15 minutes left on the time slot here, can you just run through that very briefly to give some people kind of like a rough idea of what that's going to mean?
Yeah. So the NAR settlement was huge in the real estate world. That settlement came down a couple of months ago, and they said that come September, they were going to be imputing some very major changes in the way that buyers and sellers do business in real estate across the nation. This was a national lawsuit against National Association of Realtors. And basically it was a group of lawyers who, sucked in some sellers that said, hey, that evil realtor of yours, they tricked you into paying a 6% commission that included a payout to the buyer's agent. We should sue these nasty realtors because that's not right. You shouldn't be paying for a buyer's agent's commission. They should be paying their own commissions. And all the sellers were like, yeah, great idea. So, it was all based out of antitrust violations. And I'm sure there was something there because obviously NAR lost they settled. They settled with the lawsuit. So basically, what's going to happen, and in St. Louis, in Missouri, and everybody has their own take on this, but by September, everybody has to comply. But in Missouri, come July 1st, all the real estate forms will be changing because buyers will be responsible to negotiate their own commission payout to their realtor. Now, if you've never utilized a realtor before, if you've never bought a house before, that might not sound like a big deal. But here's the way it's always been done historically. Historically, and I am not going, so I will mention these numbers, but let me just say, because of antitrust violations, these are hypothetical. I have to give that disclosure, that disclaimer, because it's against the law for me to discuss numbers in public. Which is ironic because everybody's always crying about, oh, we need clarity, we need transparency. This is the cloudiest thing I've ever seen because I cannot just tell you my numbers. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, for hypothetical purposes, let's just say, and historically, on average, there's a 6% commission that a seller will pay to their agent when selling a house. Now that agent or their brokerage, they take that 6% and they divvy it up. And for easy math, let's just say the listing agent gets 3%, the buyer's agent gets 3%, and that seller out of their proceeds pays that 6%. So the new law says that I can no longer, as a listing agent, I can no longer advertise to anyone to say, hey, I'll pay you 3% if you bring me a buyer. But that, and that's always been historically up until July 1st, that's always been in the MLS. If I as a buyer's agent, I can look in the MLS and I can visibly see right there, okay, this house pays 2.5, this house pays 2.7. I know what I'm getting paid from the get-go. That number is going to be gone. I'm going to have no idea what I'm getting paid. So as a buyer's agent, that's very terrifying because I don't want to get into too much down the rabbit hole, but it's terrifying because a lot of buyers cannot, will not, aren't allowed to, can't pay that commission. That's a lot of money. The sellers, on the other hand, now that they're hearing about this lawsuit, all of a sudden they're like, woohoo, we don't have to pay commission. So, like, there's so much misinformation out there. It's very scary. It's a very scary time in real estate. So, as a seller, you need to keep a good strategy. You need a strong strategy. And let me give you just, um, you know, a, a foresight. It's not a good strategy to not pay commission to a buyer's agent. So sorry, spoiler alert. When we talk about listing and strategy listings, paying a 0% to your buyer's agency commission is just a mistake. But on the buyer's side, you are going to have to make sure that you have a strong realtor that knows how to negotiate. Because as far as me and my house, we are going to be going after that seller to pay our commission if we have buyers. We are under no circumstance trying to get money from our buyers. We're going balls out to get our commission paid from sellers. Because I know what it's like to be a buyer and I know what my buyers' finances look like. And so also just on the surface of it, the one thing that's really going to change for buyers is you will have to now have a buyer's agreement signed before you can even look at a house. So you click that Zillow button and you want to see a house at 5 o'clock today, you're going to be getting something through electronic signature to sign a buyer's agreement of some sort. Because by law, we cannot open a door unless you have agreed to pay our commission. Like, that's big. That's people don't believe it when I tell them that. They're like, that can't be true. It's true. And wait till July 1st. You're going to see that it's true. I'm not lying.
Yeah, that's pretty eye-opening and scary stuff that's going on in the real estate world. I mean, where's the incentive, right? So I know we talked about it before, and once again, not going to go into spoiler because we're going to have a whole segment on this and cover everything. However, I did want to touch on this. We talked about before, when my wife and I, a couple years ago, when we were looking to buy our home, right? Okay, anybody with two fucking thumbs and a pair of eyes can download Zillow, right? And look at houses, right? But getting in there, okay, that was a pain in the ass. You need a realtor for that. There's no doubt about it, right? On the flip side of that, kind of like when you took the initiative and you went and got your real estate license so you could sell your house, right? In this case, we needed a real estate agent to handle all the logistics stuff behind the scene, right? I don't at that time. I've done some real estate deals now, so it's a little different. But I did not know how to negotiate real estate. I didn't know what LTV meant. I didn't know any of those terms, right? So without an agent to represent you the right way and for them to be compensated the right way, you're at the mercy of the seller, right? And
Yeah.
if you think that this house is worth 500 grand and they tell you it's worth 500 grand, but in reality it appraises for 200, well, you're out the difference and they're laughing to the bank, right? So having a representation, a representative in that field is mission critical. I mean, I don't understand why
Yeah.
we wouldn't be skipping steps like this. Like it's
Yeah, and there's just so many things that can go wrong, and again, it's funny because, like, my husband and I share office space, so he hears me on the phone all day long, and he's just like, "How on earth does anybody think they can do a for sale by owner?" He's like, "Are they idiot? Like, if they only knew all of the terrifying things that I go through in a day, all the stress that I take," and I am creative, I am thinking outside the box, I am a problem solver, and I tell you, selling 100 houses a year, I don't have any two ever alike because everything's got problems of its own that are always making us pivot, change, whatever. There's so many things. And if you took that peek behind the curtain and you knew how many things could go wrong and how you can open yourself up to so much liability in these transactions, you would never think to go unrepresented as a buyer or a seller. But, here's the thing, buying a house is most likely the biggest financial obligation or decision in your life. Why would you not have representation? I mean, if you were getting divorced, you wouldn't do it on your own. You wouldn't Google it and listen to a podcast and be like, oh, I can do that. I don't do my own taxes. I mean, some people do, but once you really get some finances rolling, you don't do your own accounting anymore. You don't do your own taxes because you don't want to screw it up and get an audit. I mean, how much bigger is the purchase of your home than your taxes or a divorce or putting a will together? Like, it's the biggest decision of your life. You need representation. Trust me, I see too many things go wrong.
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
serious thing. I thought the first thing that stood out was liability. I need representation. If I'm going to be handling these type of loans, these negotiations, I don't know anything about that. I'm medical, right? So I need someone who has the good grasp, who has that long history, the 6 years, the 100 house, that type of stuff. I need that stuff. So I mean, thankful that you're able to come and help out and help out with that because I
Yeah, I
can't.
mean, and just to scratch the surface, starting from beginning to end, as a buyer or a seller, you get into a deal and then all of a sudden the lender says, "Oh, you don't qualify for a loan." Well, if you're the seller, well, your deal just fell apart. If you're the buyer, you just lost your house. As a realtor, I've got lenders in my pocket that I can be like, "Hey, dude, I need this pre-approval ASAP. We're closing in 9 days. Can you do it?" And I've done it. I have closed houses that have the lenders have come to the closing table like the week of closing and been like, "Yeah, you know what? We cannot underwrite this loan." I've turned around multiple deals in under 10 days with starting brand new with a new lender. If you didn't have a realtor, what do you do when your deal falls apart because your finances fell through? You don't have that. You don't have that pull. Or, inspections come and all of a sudden you find termites or you find a collapsed sewer lateral. If you're not represented, you don't know where to turn. Who do I get a bid from? What are my options? Can I get out of the contract? Can I ask for a credit? Do they have to repair it? Like, how would you know? You know what I mean? Like, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. It only gets harder from there. So, like, those happen every day. It's Missouri. There's termites in a lot of houses. And like, it's just those are the things that I deal with on a daily basis and I just roll with it. I'm like, "Oh, termites, no problem. Boom, boom, boom. Get it done, close the deal." Just there's so much. So I don't know. I feel like people don't understand how stressful it is because I take that stress, I make it look easy, but until you've lived it, you would never know because on the surface it just looks like, "Oh, buying a house, write the check, close the deal." No, that never happens. It's
Yeah, I
very
mean, in
rare.
what you said though, I can't stress this enough for all the listeners out there, right? The reality is this, guys. Buying a home is most likely going to be the biggest purchase of your life. Okay.
Mhm.
In any situation, right? Why would you not want to have that extra security blanket? Why would you not want to have that security, the insurance aspect of it, the guarantee that you're not going to get screwed over in this deal, and as well as like, hey, you agree to something, right? And you don't have representation, like you just said, inspection comes around and there's a cracked foundation and termites. Well, guess who's on the hook, right? And you don't know how to get out of it. So now you're
Right.
stuck buying a lemon as a house. And that's how you create generational problems with finances, right? Getting
Yeah.
sucked into things like that. I mean, whenever our real estate agent we used back in the day, she was somebody that we randomly went to high school with that we didn't know too well, but whatever, we ran into her and we used her and it worked out great. But however, there were certain aspects that the deal would not have been in our favor if it wasn't for her knowledge in that case, right? For the amount of money and percent of the deal that it is, God bless, guys. Please just do it. Just do the right
Well,
thing. Cover your ass.
and here's the thing too, a good realtor is going to earn their money
Right.
tenfold, tenfold. If I on a standard deal, my average commission in Missouri, we're not selling $1 million homes. So let's just say my average commission on a deal is anywhere from like 8,000 to $20,000. Let's just say depending on the price of the house. So on an average commission, that's what I'm usually, let's just say 10,000. I am likely going, as a buyer, I am likely going to save you every bit of that $10,000 because not only am I going to run the comps and make sure you're not overpaying for the house, but I'm also going to make sure that inspections, we're getting credits that are when credits are due or repairs that needed to be done. If it appraises low, I'm fighting tooth and nail to renegotiate after the appraisal comes in low. If it does, like I am probably going to earn you back that $10,000 you just paid me to represent you. And the same goes on the listing side. I mean, I earn my keep. I'm mostly a listing agent, but I really earn my keep as a listing agent because I tell you what, the $20,000 you're going to pay me to list your house, I'm going to make you 40 or $50,000 more.
Yeah.
Like I can really make you some money as a listing agent. As a
Yeah.
buyer's agent, it's all about renegotiation and saving you money. But as a listing agent, I am making you barrels of money. And you're not going to make those barrels of money as a FISBO on Zillow buried at the bottom of some feed,
There's no way.
So
And I see what the content you create, right? When you sell a home, like guys, if you haven't, found Trish's stuff on Facebook yet, definitely look up the Wolf team and
Wolfpack,
Trish
Wolfpack.
Wolfpack, excuse
Mhm.
me. I'm
Yep.
can't believe I said that wrong.
Wow.
The
Uh,
Wolfpack, obviously Trish and her team, right? But the content that she creates, like if you are looking to sell your home and you're in the St. Louis region, there's nobody else I'd rather have my home in hands with than for example, when we were going to sell our home a couple months ago, she was the first person I called. Actually, I
yeah.
called her daughter and I was like, "Hey, let me talk to your mom." So, but yeah,
And we
but
just team. Well, my daughter's on my team. She's
right,
had her license now about 2 years. And we make a great team because, obviously mom and daughter, we talk about 30 times a day. So, like, my brain is her brain. She was working with one of my longtime investors because we do a lot of investment properties together, commercial apartment buildings. We do a lot of that. And she's become my commercial specialist because she's just got a brain for numbers. Whereas, by my math earlier, trying to figure $100,000 home, my brain is not a brain for numbers. She's my numbers girl, and she can factor that ROI in her sleep, and she's
right.
great with the numbers. But we make a great team because we bounce ideas off of each other. We're bouncing off strategy, and everything that I've learned, she just gets by sheer osmosis. And hearing me talk on the phone every day, I mean, she's like my mini me. And someday she'll be running this business, but yeah, I mean, look me up on Facebook. Trish Wolf Realtor is my Facebook and my Instagram handle. I think my Wolf Pack stuff actually on YouTube. It might be Wolf Team because Wolf Pack was taken. But
I
yeah, look
told
me
you.
up.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it. I feel like
yeah.
an idiot, but now I knew it. But real quick,
No,
before we before we
yep.
wrap up with that, because I want to allow you to plug yourself in as much as possible. One more justification of why the hell you need to pay your fucking agents, both sides, right? Is this. When my wife and I in 2021, when we bought our house, right, and the craziness of that market, God bless our agent. She probably showed us probably 30 houses, right? And
Yeah,
those people are not paid at that point, right? So they're spending probably I mean, God bless. I think yeah, probably I mean at least 20 if not 30 houses, right? So that's multiple hours of their life driving there, dealing with their family stuff. Like that money is well deserved, guys. I mean, just use some fucking common decency and do the right thing. If you're having an agent show you 30 properties or on the other side of it, right? If they're having the other side meet you at the property multiple times, guys, pay them their due. It's just a decent thing to do.
Well, I think a lot of people are under the misconception like we're employees or something, because honestly, I don't think a lot of people know I do not get paid unless we close on a house together. Like we
Right.
do not get paid. Even though I'm a Zillow agent, I think people hit that Zillow button thinking I just work for Zillow and I'm out being a door opener because I got the, keys. But that is not how it works. I could show you 100 houses. I do not get paid a penny. It's all on spec. I don't get paid a penny until we close the deal. And I cannot tell you how many times that people don't understand that. And they I'll show them houses for a year. And then I call to follow up and they're like, oh, we're so excited. Yeah, we bought new construction. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, what? What? Like, why didn't you call me? And they're like, well, it was new construction. It's like, are you kidding? I've been showing you houses for a year. So, always if you are using a realtor and you like that realtor, unless they've done something that you need to just fire them, stick with that realtor and let them earn their money at the end. Like don't let somebody poach you out from under them when it comes to the finish line because man, we work hard for our money and we never know if we're going to get paid. So it's a tough and cutthroat occupation.
It very much is. Well, I think we'll end it on that, guys. If you haven't already, because this is the first segment of this, series here we're going to do on the real estate lifestyle. Um, check out Trish on all of her social medias. Please do that for sure. I mean, if anything, you're going to learn a thing or two. So when you do buy a home, it's going to be worth your time, and you're going to do it correctly. However, too, please stay tuned to the next couple episodes related to this topic. It's going to be an absolute blast when we get into the NAR stuff and. You're going to see, excuse my language, guys, but you're going to see a lot of fuckery in the system. So it's going to be very eye-opening to see kind of a realtor's and a well-seasoned realtor's perspective on this, because most people, like in my position, a buyer or seller, does not know about. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 35, which is crazy, right? Thank you so much for joining us on episode 35. So if you have any questions about this or how to get in contact with Trish and her team, send us a message. We'll send you right to her. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.